Ghana loses close to $120 million as a result of smuggling of fertilizer. I want to find out from August 2017 to date, what practical steps did you take to prevent or stop smuggling of government subsidized fertilizer in the country?
Thank you. Honorable Chair, since this is a House of Record, I want to find out from the Honorable Member this $120 million that he talks about.
Honorable Minister, if that is not correct or you don't know that, say that, but you don't ask the question.
Okay.
So let you give us the answer.
Because I'm surprised. The total amount of money we spend on fertilizer in this country, it means that half of it is carried away across our borders, and that cannot be true. This is why it's a rhetorical question, but it is a fact that I'm stating that it cannot be $120 million. In any case, Honorable Chairman, we have taken very severe measures in the last 2 years to stop the leakage. And the reason why it is there is very simple. We are the only country around us which subsidizes fertilizer in seed. No country does that. And therefore, and we are subsidizing fertilizers, as has been indicated, 50%. So the smugglers have a field day with a huge amount of money if they are able to carry one bag across the border. But I would like to, in answer to his question, I would like to come out with 4 items that we have done. First of all, we have restricted the distribution of fertilizers to the districts that are known to be indulged in this trading. And these are in Upper East region. We have 6 districts that we have restricted the movement of fertilizer into. Upper West, 6 districts. Northern region, 2 districts. Northeast region, 1 district. And Volta region, 5 districts. So for the last 2 years, we've restricted the movement of fertilizer to these districts because we know them to be the centers of this illegal trade. Now, apart from that, we have also branded all subsidized fertilizers with big logo, Planting for Food and Jobs, with a yellow band diagonally crossing every bag. And the bags of fertilizer for subsidy has also been reduced from a unit weight of 50 kilograms to 25 kilograms. So that is another area that we are doing. We are resorting to reduce to the minimum the movement of fertilizer across our borders illegally. At the moment, we are trying a new system of e-monitoring of fertilizer distribution. We've experimented in the northern region with, maybe 50,000 farmers, where we register them, take their thumbprints, give them a card, and they can load, just like Momo money, they can load on it, and then use it at the retail and pick up their fertilizers to go and apply on their farms. So we have gone to a great extent, and is working. And not only that, because of the threat of jihad in the northern part of West Africa, Ghana has stationed platoons of soldiers along our border in the north, from east to west. And we are collaborating with these platoons also to monitor movement of fertilizers and other products, including some petroleum products across the border. So this has effectively reduced to the minimum the amount of fertilizer which crosses the border illegally. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, my next issue is on cocoa production. Mr. Chairman, per the 2019 budget, on page 112, Cocoa Board is implementing some interventions to ensure cocoa production in the country. Some of the interventions include mass spraying, artificial pollination, cocoa farm irrigation, and mass pruning. But I'm sure the minister will agree with me that if you go to the Western North now, as part of implementing these interventions, cocoa production keeps on going down. So my question is, and what is your outfit going to do about the drastic going down of cocoa production in the Western North region?
Honorable Chairman, it's very unfortunate that we witnessed a massive decline in the heart of the cocoa industry, which is now the Western North. And we all know that production has virtually collapsed. Now, that has its genesis well before we came into office. The policies that were implemented by the previous administration, by removing the subsidy, the grants that were given to farmers for cutting their trees infected with swollen shoot, did not help. The so-called free distribution of fertilizers to farmers did not help either. So it's taking over 5-6 years until we came before any effective action was taken. You remember that in the heat of the campaign, I think it's September, the president launched this $600 million scheme supported by the African Development Bank and the Japanese banks to try and get to the bottom of this outbreak of swollen shoot by making sure that every tree 19, there's no, in that case now at least we have vaccines for COVID-19. In the case of the CVBS, there's no, we haven't found any solution. That scientific solution is to take out the tree and then plant with a new seedling. And the new seedling, of course, takes 3-4 years. So we are giving grants to farmers who uproot, take out their trees for the 3-year period that they wait for the new seedling to start yielding. The government is giving a grant, I've forgotten how much, every year to support their incomes whilst they wait for this. And that is encouraging the farmers. The statistics. Last year, the number of trees that were cut compared to, that's 2019, compared to 2020, is a huge increase in the numbers. So farmers are now very comfortable with this scheme that has been put in place by us. And we are hoping that there will be a massive revival of the cocoa industry in the Western North in another 3-4 years when the scheme is fully implemented. Thank you.
Honorable Member, be guided and take a cue. That will be your last.
Mr. Chairman, my next question is on the payment of cocoa purchased by Cocoa Board to cocoa farmers. At the moment, the minister is aware that Cocoa Board owns the LBCs, and therefore the LBCs also own their district managers and purchasing clerks. The minister tries to provide some answers, reasons that have accounted for this non-payment to the farmers.
Remember,
Mr. Please. I know what I'm doing. Obi, sit down. Be quiet and listen to me, please. Yes. What is this? Mr. Nominee, you try to provide some justification for the non-payment. My question to you is, when should cocoa farmers expect cocoa that will be bought by Cocoa Board to be paid to them? When? Because we were trying to say that we were expecting the last drawdown, and we don't even know when the last drawdown will come. So when should cocoa farmers expect payments of their farm produce?
The chairman, I've spent some time on this subject, but because Honorable Ahi is a good friend of mine, I will indulge him with an answer. Monday, farmers will start getting paid. Yes.
Respectfully,
The second one was,
respectfully, you exhausted your time.
Hey,
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Congratulations, Doc. Doc, congratulations. And my question relates to the Ghana Cote d'Ivoire Sustainable Cocoa Initiative that was established, among other intents, to promote better pricing for farmers and to combat the cross-boundary smuggling and to promote other interests. Can you apprise the committee on the benefits yielded so far, and what would you do to sustain the gains in this collaboration when given the nod? Thank you.
Chairman. Mr. Chairman. The question was a bit muffled, so I couldn't hear part of it.
Yeah, Doc, for the benefits of repeats, the Ghana Cote d'Ivoire Sustainable Cocoa Initiative, the bilateral arrangement that was established with Cote d'Ivoire to promote, among other things, better pricing for farmers and to combat cross-border smuggling of cocoa and to promote other mutual interests in respect of cocoa production. Some 2-3 years on the implementation, what are some of the gains that this bilateral collaboration has yielded for the country, and what steps would you take, one given the nod, to sustain the gains, the gains yielded from this bilateral arrangement? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Yes, this collaboration started 3 years ago, but it's only this year that we've actually implemented it. We've implemented it. The LID, the Living Income Differential, is to do with the fact that on top of the premiums that the chocolatiers and processors abroad pay for the produce from Ghana, for instance, on top of that, every ton of cocoa that we sell to these top. So in the case of Ghana, we are talking about $200 premium, natural premium, historical premium. So on top of the 200 pounds sterling on the London terminal, there is also the $400 per ton that these customers have to pay under the LID. That has enabled us to increase our producer price on the 1st of October, as the President announced in Serioso, by $400. So that went straight to the farmers, and they are still benefiting from it. It's only recently that it has emerged that Cote d'Ivoire is having problems of the international traders of Cote d'Ivoire cocoa. And of course, they know that Cote d'Ivoire produces a chunk of the total production between us and Ghana. They do something like 2.5 million metric tons. Ghana is doing around 900,000 metric tons. So there is a lot of pressure on Cote d'Ivoire at the moment, which is causing a distortion in the market and is making it difficult for the implementation of the LID in Cote d'Ivoire. But we are in touch with the authorities there to see what we can do in order to sustain the whole arrangement. In fact, 3 days ago, I was at an international conference, International Fund for Agricultural Development. We had our 44th council meeting. I'm a governor there. And because of the COVID, we couldn't go to Rome. The key speaker happened to be the chairman of Mars Chocolate. And I confronted him after his speech with a question that you are saying that you are doing all you can in Indonesia to help smallholding farmers. Here in West Africa, we have the LID with you, and some of you are not abiding strictly by the arrangement. You know? Oh, the answer he could give was that as far as Mars is concerned, they are keeping to their side of the bargain. And of course, it is an international conference. I couldn't have a banter with him on the issue. So I had to leave it. But our customers, international customers, to bring to the table seems to be wobbly as we speak. But we are still working on it to make sure that it stays on course. Thank you.
And finally, Mr. Chairman, on my side, Doc, you recall the cocoa districts that are operating to make cocoa implement fertilizers and extension services more accessible to farmers operates in this joint with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture established Ministry of Food and Agriculture district. The MOFA districts are different from the cocoa districts. And sometimes you find one district, one MOFA district, being served by about 3 or 4 cocoa districts adjoining. It makes it very disjointed. Would you consider an expansion of cocoa districts in streamline with the MOFA districts, such that there will be one clear direction where farmers would access cocoa implement and extension supports from? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. This is an issue which has been ongoing, and we've dealt with it on a case-by-case basis. I know, for instance, that Bosome Frehon, district chief executive, approached me about the fact that they had to send their cocoa way across to Bekwai and so on, and it's discouraging cocoa production. So he made an application to Cocoa Board, and now they've been granted a district. So, and the same thing for German North, one of the areas. They were saying that it's encouraging smuggling because they have to bring their cocoa all the way. They wanted their own district. I drew the attention of the CEO of Cocoa Board to it, and I'm sure by now they've taken action to create a district for them. But it means that we need to review the whole arrangement, because the structure of production, of course, has changed since it was established. These districts were established maybe 30, 40 years ago. So we will look at that and see how best we can fashion out a more realistic district arrangement. But whether it will coincide with Cocoa Board districts, I'm sorry, with MOFA districts, I'm not sure. We'll have to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable nominee, how you've talked extensively about planting for food and jobs. I want to take you back to that policy. Now, how different is the planting for food and jobs policy from the usual agro subsidies that almost all governments in this country have undertaken, including offering support to large-scale farmers for all crops? Planting for food and jobs policy, there are just a few selected crops that the policy applies to.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. The difference is very simple. It's the scale of it. The scale of it in terms of the amount of resources, public resources going into these areas of subsidy and the quantum of it, the number of farmers benefiting from it. That's the difference. And it's such a difference that is unprecedented. And I have the statistics to support what I'm saying, in the sense that if you look at budgetary resources which has gone into planting for food and jobs, it is such a massive, demonstrate the point that I'm making, and I don't seem to be fighting. Just a second. Anyway, I'll come to it in a second. So, for instance, before 2017, this fertilizer subsidy was put in place by the Kufuor government in 2007, and it was continued by the NDC administration for the 2 terms until we came. Throughout that period, the largest amount of fertilizer which was imported under the program was only 110,000 metric tons. And the 110,000 metric tons, the highest amount of subsidy was only 20%. 20% between 2007 and 2016. When we came, as I told you, from 110, last year, 2020, we were able to distribute over 400,000 metric tons of fertilizer under subsidy to farmers. 400,000. And not only that, we came in with a subsidy rate of 50%. So, in terms of scale, and as I said, from 202,000 beneficiaries in 2017, we are talking about 1.7 million beneficiaries in 2020. So, it is such a huge volume that last year, between seed and fertilizer alone, from the budget, we spent nearly 1 billion cedis. Never happened before. Both in terms of quantity, value, beneficiaries, and so on. So that is the basic difference between planting for food and jobs and other government agricultural projects, programs in the past as far as subsidy is concerned.
Now, honorable nominee, notwithstanding the difference in quantum, that is what you say is the difference. Women groups have complained bitterly, particularly in the Upper West region, that the policy is discriminatory against them because you have to have up to a certain acreage of farm before you qualify to become beneficiary under the policy. And yet, as you know, women are most vulnerable. Most of them are below the poverty line, so they are not able to benefit under the policy. Secondly, the category of crops that the policy covers does not include groundnuts. And you know, in that part of the country, groundnuts farming is the mainstay of women in particular. How do you intend to address this challenge associated with the policy?
Honorable Chairman, I share the sentiment of the honorable member in that respect, that there is always been discrimination, locality to locality, culture to culture. And if I may, Honorable Chairman, I'll recall a story where my car was stuck in the bush somewhere around Mion, and I had to wait for 2 hours to be retrieved from the bush for another car to come with a tractor to come and pull me out. And I was going to visit a group of women farmers. They waited. When I got there at about 7:30. Luckily for me, the moon was so bright. We had the meeting. There were about 50 of them. It's a small village, but there were about 50 of them sitting under the tree waiting for me. And we had a meeting. And their complaint was exactly what you were saying, that we should give them special project. We shouldn't add them to their husband's requirement, because very little comes to them. And I was very sympathetic to that. Fortunately for me, the original that we should make that as a pilot, make a special program for the women in that village to see how that will come up. To be honest, this was about 2 years ago. I haven't gone back to check about the impact, first of all, the action that you took to make sure that the women are separated and given special treatment, and if so, what impact has it got on production and so on. But now that you've reminded me, I'll go back to see how this thing works, because you are right. Government programs of a rural nature tend to favor men more than women and kids and children. So we have to be able to design these programs or fine-tune them to make sure that there's a balance between the nation.
Final question. Honorable nominee, the last time the minister designate for roads appeared before this committee, like you are appearing now, he gave strong indication that the Fuchuluga Sandema Wesi road is one of priority for this government because of the agricultural potential that the Fumbisi Wesi Bedimbilisi valleys comes with. Now, and he further indicated that so the Ministry for Roads and Highways is going to collaborate with which are noted for rice cultivation. Now, what concrete plans do you have from the perspective of Agric to open up the Fumbisi, Bedimbilisi, Wesi valleys for rice cultivation?
Thank you. Honorable Chairman, the area the Honorable Member is talking about was one of the first areas I visited as an undergraduate in agriculture at the University of Ghana. And they took us there to show us that these are valleys, about 18 of them, that can supply the whole of West Africa with rice. And when I became Minister for Food and Agriculture, I don't know how many years after, it's about 3 years ago when I visited, I was very disappointed to know that only 1,300 hectares had been developed out of I don't know how many. So it's really wasting natural resources to find these valleys which are ideal. Academics accept that is a place, farmers and so on, but very little development. And in fact, I was in the company of the President of the Republic. The chief of Fumbisi appealed to us to come and open an agricultural college. And it's very much on my cards to do so. But not only that, we intend, as we speak, under one of our projects, we are clearing over 2,000 hectares. Years that I went there, only 1,300 or so has been. We are doing 2,000 as we speak. You go there, they will tell you, you can go and see for yourself. We are very determined that we will make sure that God's endowment in Fumbisi is realized. So we are also building a warehouse. We put on a pilot scheme a rice mill, a small solar rice mill, to see how it works. So we have very big plans for the area, you can be assured. And indeed, my Honorable Minister Designate for Roads, we've discussed it, that in addition we need the infrastructure to open up the place, whilst we do our bit to do so. So we have very, very big plans for the people of the area, and you'll hear more about that in due course. Thank you.
Honorable Ministerial. So,
good day, Grand Uncle. My first question is, what accounts for the huge difference between earnings from these tree crops and cash crops in Ivory Coast and in Ghana?
It says, what accounts for the huge difference in earnings from tree crops in Ghana?
Honorable Chairman, for those who are not very conversant with the subject, Ivory Coast earns something like $17–18 billion from tree commodities. Ivory Coast earns something like $16, $17, $18 billion every year from tree commodities, about 5 of them. Ghana, we earn $2.3, $2.5 billion from cocoa alone. And we could do far better. That's the essence of Tree Crop Development Authority. That authority, which is new, is just coming on the market, is charged with a responsibility to ensure that in the next 8 years, 10 years, we should be earning at least $15, $16 billion a year from these selected crops: oil palm, coconut, mango, rubber, coffee, cashew, shea nuts. That's their brief. And if the government of Ghana supports this authority, I'm sure we'll be there faster than I am even thinking. So there's a lot of lessons to learn from Côte d'Ivoire about diversified agricultural economy than the monocrop agriculture that Ghana has been practicing for 140 years since Tetekwashi brought cocoa from Fernando Po. Thank you.
but Honorable Minister, the farmer in Côte d'Ivoire, yes, this is a follow-up, I'll give it back to you. The farmer in Côte d'Ivoire is a businessman, and he or she invests heavily in, what do we call it, plantations, compared to us, where still the largest majority of our farmers are smallholder farmers. How are we going to reach their figures when we use the same smallholder farmer approach?
Honorable Chairman, if the smallholder farmer has been able to deliver a world-class industry like cocoa in Ghana for the London market, I don't see why they cannot do the same with coconut, oil palm, rubber, mango, coffee, cashew, and the rest. We can use the same vehicle to develop. The only thing is that government has not been supportive of smallholder farmers outside cocoa. In the case of Côte d'Ivoire, it doesn't exist. And that is the assignment given to the Tree Crop Development Authority, that is to establish a research with the research organizations and institutions doing research into these various crops. They should set up the marketing system. Sure, you may not forget that it's only recently that bill came here for this August House to bring it into law. Unfortunately, the president has inaugurated the management and the board. And they are yet to be given their seed fund. And I'm talking to the Minister of Finance to make sure that happens, and they will be off the tracks. Thank you.
Yes, you may continue.
Thank you. With the support of buffer stock, Free SHS has been able to manage very well as far as feeding students are concerned. What is missing is that how is it that we are still not able to give, through buffer stock, enough cocoa products for our secondary schools?
What?
I said through buffer stock under your ministry, Free SHS has benefited a lot in economies of scale, quality of the food that are supplied. Why is it that we are not able to do the same thing for cocoa products to our secondary schools?
Cocoa products are being supplied from Ghana Cocoa Processing Company in Tema. Cocoa CPC, as they call it, is 2/3 owned by Ghana Cocoa Board. They've had their problems, their financial problems in the past, where they went and borrowed 15 years ago, 20 years ago. They borrowed in dollars, and so the depreciation of the currency, that industry is trying to revive itself with their new arrangement that I have put in place between Cocoa Board and CPC to make sure that the company revives. It's got a lot of potential, and I'm glad that the collaboration is working. And once they are on good footing, then obviously the kids can have their chocolate, no problem. But at the moment, they are not strong enough to do so. Thank you.
Yes. I'll go first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Honorable nominee, I want us to go back to a matter that was raised by the minority leader when he engaged you a while ago. It involves the impasse between Fruit Terminal Company Limited and the Fruit Export Terminal Ghana Limited at the ports and harbors. First of all, what was the scope of the 2008 concession agreement that GPHA refers to as a defunct agreement? And are you aware that the FTC is still operating the Shed 9 that MOFA refurbished, and doing so under tariffs that have not been since revised when they were fixed in for over 7 times revised their tariffs? Are you aware what's in charge of Steve Dorry? So the first part of the question is, what was the concession agreement? What was the scope of the concession agreement?
Hello, Chairman. I'm surprised that the agreement that we have with GPHA should be... Yeah, I've never heard GPHA referred to it as defunct. I've never, and we've had a lot of correspondence. This is the first time this is being attributed to them. So that is beside the point. The main point that we are talking about is to do with the fact that the Shed 9, Ministry of Food and Agriculture, had to borrow $500,000 US from the World Bank to put it in a position to export fresh fruits and vegetables. And the agreement has all kinds of conditions, which up to today started communicating with my colleague Minister of Transport. That communication is still going on to see how best we resolve this issue at the port. So I'm not in a position to make any comment. Either public or private has come to a clear conclusion. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a follow-up on that, and I have seen a number of correspondence between GPHA and the ministry, and I can say on authority that they have referred to that agreement on defunct. I have those documents here, but the follow-up has to do with the fact that at a point, this correspondence, FTC and FET began to discuss shareholder purchase. FTC therefore appointed Ernst & Young as transaction advisor. At some point, they even requested for an extension of the memorandum of understanding validity to allow them access all the information that they needed to acquire the shares in FET. Now, per this letter, dates to the Chief Executive Officer of Fruit and Export Terminal, and says that we reckon, in part, that we reckon that this directive of the Minister of Agriculture, when carried out by GPHA, will offend the concession agreement we executed with you on May 18, 2015, which granted you rights to handle the horticulture products and related operations. Unfortunately, we are not in position to decline the directive, considering the source and the motive behind it. Accordingly, we wish to hereby put on notice of your intention to terminate the concession agreement dated June 18, 2015. This is conveying information to them, information regarding the termination of a concession that they have with Ghana Ports and Harbour, and clearly the language will tell you that GPHA is not comfortable with that directive that has been agreed and sent to them by you and the Transport Minister. Again, GPHA in a briefing to you.
Are you asking a question on
I'm asking a question, Mr. Chairman.
Please follow up with the question.
If I ask the question without this background, it will not make sense, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect. With all due respect, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. So, this is their latest letter. But in a briefing to you, Honorable Nominee, they indicated construct a facility designed to house the central store, the printing section, and offices for the electrical and welfare sections. The cost of this building is estimated at $3 million. And according to GPHA, FET has actually carried out all these projects. According to GPHA, worth $3 million. Now, the cancellation of this concession, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, how will the nominee assure this committee, given a letter that has been written by Providence Law Consult, already indicating intention to legally battle GPHA, that a judgment debt will not be, over the heads of Ghana any moment from now, as far as this directive to cancel the concession with FET is concerned?
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Honourable Chairman, I must confess I'm totally bemused and confused about all the quotations that he's making. I've already said that at the end of our term, and I'm not in a position to make a comment on the issue. It would be very unfair on my part to make a public statement when my fellow colleague is in discussions with me. It's unethical. Thank you.
The question really was that, I think you have answered that question already, that are you sure that a judgment debt is not likely to ensue? I think you have answered that question earlier.
Has he answered that?
The same question, and he answered.
Mr. Chairman, has he answered that?
Yes, the Honourable Minority Leader asked him the same question earlier.
Well, I'm sure that my chief whip will look at this because we shared this document, because I would have loved to follow up on it, but I will move on to another question. Planting for food and jobs. In an answer to an earlier question, you indicated again that that is what you wanted to leave as a legacy. I have seen documentation suggesting that, for example, in 2013, the government of Canada began discussions with the government of Ghana on a budget support program, like they have done in the past, in connection with the design of their next phase of support to agriculture, and a number of tasks were undertaken. And on 25th February 2016, the First Secretary Development of the Canadian High Commission met with the Honourable Minister of Agri, Mohamed Muniru Limuna then, and pledged 125 million Canadian dollars support for the 2017 budget. During the State of the Nation address in February 2017, His Excellency the President made reference to this pledge from the Canadian government, an amount of let me just quote what the President said. A national campaign, Planting for Food and Jobs, will be launched to stimulate this activity. An amount of 125 million Canadian dollars has been secured from Canada, a friend of our nation, to support the initiative. Now, also at the signing ceremony, we're told then that the initiative of efforts by government to reverse the declining growth of agri sector over the past 8 years. This was at the signing ceremony between Ghana and Canada, where the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, signed on behalf of Ghana, and the Canadian High Commissioner to Ghana, Ms. Heather Ann Cameron, on behalf of her country, also signed on behalf of her country. Now, Honourable Nominee, beyond this support that came from Canada, that you inherited as Minister of Agri, what other sources of funds have you mobilized and injected into the then MAG, Modernizing Agriculture for Ghana, rebranded Planting for Food and Jobs?
Yes, Honourable Minister. The question is it Modernizing Agriculture that has been rebranded?
No.
What was the question then?
The question traced the relationship between Canada and Ghana and the offer of 125 million Canadian dollars to support modernization of agriculture, and the SONA of His Excellency the President in February 2017 making reference to same. So I'm asking, beyond this Canadian fund, which was sourced and which he inherited as Minister of Agri, which other funds has he mobilized as Minister of Agri and injected into this program, then called MAG, now called Planting for Food and Jobs? That's the question, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect.
Yes, Honourable, have you solved any other fund apart from what Canada?
Honourable Chairman, I think the Honourable Member of Parliament is getting very confused. MAG is for a specific purpose of re-establishing extension services in the agricultural sector in Ghana. And the support is coming in terms of logistics. So they have provided vehicles, 300 pickups and 3,000 motorbikes for the extension services. But I was supposed to be handing over 4,000 extension officers. When I did the audit, there were only 1,600. And out of the 1,600, 80% of them were going on pension in another 2-3 years. So there was virtually no extension services for the vehicles to service. I had to come to Cabinet to ask for an excuse.
Honourable Minister, so you have, your program is different and your sort of funding is different.
So I don't understand when you're saying that it's called Planting for Food and Jobs.
Thank you.
It's not.
Mr. Chairman,
And secondly, please, I'm answering the question.
Yes,
Let me finish your
you.
question, please. Secondly, if you ask which other resources have come into Planting for Food and Jobs, I'm glad to tell him that GOG, Government of Ghana, under Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has increased the budgetary allocation to my ministry from 414 million in 2016 to 965 to 954 million in the past 1 year. Our own resources, which has gone into Planting for Food and Jobs, not any Canadian or any foreign intervention. It is a commitment of the President of the Republic to see to it that we put agriculture on a solid footing. And that's where the resources are coming from. Thank you.
And from 2000 to 2008...
Honourable, kindly ask your other question, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'm saying budgetary allocations to ministries do not represent budgetary allocations to Planting for Food and Jobs. Unless he says that...
Honourable, is that a question or you're commenting? You can run the commentary after, please. Just as a question.
Well, we do what we do on behalf of the people of Ghana. My next question, planting for food and jobs still. Mr. Chairman, I've seen a number of research reports, meal initiative that lacks the potential to make the desired impact on smallholder farmers. Now, this was a research carried out with the support of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana in collaboration with Oxfam, Private Enterprise Foundation, and other partners. There's another one published by USAID titled Assessment of Implementation of PFG Program, Lessons and Way Forward. They also identified inadequate supply of inputs and political interference and low awareness of some other parts or inputs of the program beyond seeds and fertilizer distribution. Then there's another assessment by Imani that talks about the fact that mechanization of the farming process is not that, highlighted by the program. Mr. Chairman, my question to the nominee is, with all of these findings, what quality assessments exist for the aim of the project, first of all, and the seeds, especially that are produced, and what support exists for especially local seed producers, so that at the end of the program, we will have empowered and built local timely payments made to these suppliers.
Honorable Chairman, I'm still very confused because he's gone on and on and on. I don't know specifically what he wants.
So, Mr. Chairman, I made references to research findings that have identified shortfalls in the planting for food programs. And I want to find out from the minister, those shortfalls include seed production challenges, programs, models. Those research findings have also talked about late supply of some of these inputs. And I'm asking the minister, what quality assessment programs are in place to ensure that these shortfalls identified by researchers are addressed, especially in relation to seed growers, local seed growers, the capacity building for local seed growers, and how timely are payments made to especially suppliers under this project? That's the question.
Honorable, is there a shortfall in seed production? Do you pay them timely, those who produce the seeds? Which one was the third one? So that it will be easy.
You have indicated that you are going to give special attention to the poultry sector, and that Agri Development Bank is also coming on board. I want to find out, is there a way, as a way of doing something differently, is there a way we can use the Ghana Commodity Exchange to provide an offtake arrangement with these poultry farmers to help them to become more competitive on the market?
Thank you. Honorable Chairman, yes, there is a role, as you know, that the basic ingredient for poultry farming is to do with feed. Feed can take up to 80% of the cost of production. And the feed elements are to do with soya and maize. The two are already on the Ghana Commodity Exchange list. And not only that, Buffer Stock Company is also there to buy through its agents the surpluses that are generated around the country. In fact, this pilot scheme that I mentioned, I said that poultry farming, we are doing a pilot scheme involving about 200 small poultry farmers, which we will extend. It brings together the maize and soya producers. It brings together the processors, soya meal milling processors and maize meal milling processors. It brings together feed producers and also the poultry farmers, and beyond that, along the value chain, also the slaughtering houses and the retail shop owners. So all the 5 are linked in a chain that it goes from A to B to C to D and so on. And we've done the first experiment, the pilot, as I mentioned, and it seems to be working. So the next step is to increase the number of participating smallholder farmers to from 200 to maybe 1,000. I'm yet to check with my the project manager on this, and then gradually step up. As you know, within 90 days of the chick, we should be able to produce a 2 kilogram, a 3 kilogram bear, and therefore there's a chance that if the management of the system works well, at least we have 3 slaughterings in a year for each group. And this is what we are pursuing. We've linked the Agricultural Development Bank and GERSEL to these different groups of farmers, of stakeholders, particularly the poultry, the millers, because the millers have used their capital building their mills, but they don't have enough working capital to buy from the farmers the soya and the maize. So that is one area that Agricultural Development Bank is intervening to make sure that the whole flow goes on without any disruption. And we are hoping that the assistance given by Agricultural Bank and GERSEL will continue to grow so that eventually the whole poultry industry will become a net exporter of poultry and not the importer situation that we find ourselves today. Thank you.
Very well. Yes, Rabbi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Honorable nominee, who is my tennis court mate, has been beating me on the court, unfortunately. So I have issues with him. And this is my opportunity in Idi Amin's terms to retaliate. After this, when you meet me on the court, you can do whatever you want to do. But let's get back to cocoa. Honorable colleague, Member of Parliament and Minister, outgoing Minister, and looking forward to coming back. Now, the data. International Cocoa Organization. In 2016, Ivory Coast produced 1,581,000 metric tons of cocoa. Ghana produced 778,000 metric tons in 2016. So you took over in 2017. Today, in 2019-2020, the International Cocoa Organization is estimating that Ivory Coast is producing 2,100,000 metric tons of cocoa. And you, in Ghana, will produce only 800,000 metric tons. 2019-2020. 2019-2020. So you will produce 800,000 metric tons when Ivory Coast will be producing 2.1 million. It means that between 2016 and 2020, your colleague in Ivory Coast has increased production by about 600,000 metric tons. And you would have increased production by just 20,000 metric tons. So 600,000 metric tons across the border, and you have increased production by just 20,000 metric tons. How do you assess yourself in the light of these figures?
Thank you. Honorable Chairman, yes, it is true that Honorable Ayaga sometimes runs away from me on the tennis court, but that will not deter me from giving him a proper answer to his question, which is a very interesting question. So, Mr. Chairman, yes, the trends that are being painted in the two countries are a true reflection of what is happening. But we have to go behind the veil to see the factors driving these performances. In the case of Côte d'Ivoire, they've gone into areas that traditionally were not producing in the forest, semi-forest areas, and have expanded very rapidly with inflows of labor from neighboring countries, Guinea, Burkina Faso, and so on. In the case of Ghana, and so their stock of cocoa trees are fairly new, young trees, yielding disease-resistant as any young being will be. In the case of Ghana, we are lumbered with aging plantations which are heavily diseased, led by the dreadful CVVS, which is the virus cocoa illness, which in the heart of the industry in the Western North, as I mentioned, had really driven a knife through the heart there, and production has been reduced by half in a matter of 2-3 years. And this situation, the disease spreading across even to parts of Ghana and Eastern region, is due to the way the disease was managed when it rose its ugly head. That was when decisive action should have been taken around 2012, 2011, 2013. Unfortunately, the method that it used, the government at the time used, did not help. They were asking farmers to cut the trees without giving them any financial assistance to compensate them for the 3-4 years that they had to wait with the new seedlings that were being supplied. So by the time we took over, the disease had really spread beyond the immediate environs of Western North to parts of Western region, Central region, Eastern region, and even Ashanti region. So we are really battling with a situation where even after the reintroduction of grants to farmers, at the moment, especially in the Western region, we are giving grants, 3-year yearly grants, to not only the farmers themselves, but also to the landowners, because otherwise they would disinherit the tenant farmers who are working on their farms. So this has been in place for 2 years, and now the effects on the farmers volunteering to take out these infested trees is beginning to work, because more and more droves of farmers are now joining the program voluntarily, and we have all these teams of gangs going around helping the farmers to cut and replace with the new strains of cocoa seedlings that we are doing. So this is what is happening, and this is the cause of us more or less standing still, while the Ivorians have entered into new areas and have expanded the area under cultivation considerably. In fact, I'm surprised that he's talking about 1.1. There are estimates that Côte d'Ivoire is producing over 2.5 million metric tons of cocoa. So that is the situation, and I'm trying to get a picture, explanation as to why the different rates, whereas it's stagnant going back because of the disease, old trees, and there's expansion of area and the cultivation with new, young, vibrant trees. Thank you.
Yes.
So, Honorable Omni, if I got you right, are you suggesting that the AFDB facility, which you procured, is likely to assist in addressing these challenges in the industry by way of rehabilitation and creates a new environment for our farmers to get a better yield?
Absolutely, Honorable Chairman. It means that this, we've been negotiating for this loan for about 2-3 years. And it's only last year that was finally approved. We are yet to draw down the first tranche. But it's definitely going to accelerate the process of cutting out these trees and expanding our rejuvenating our old cocoa areas by replanting with high-yielding, early maturing trees, which will boost Ghana's production in the medium term. Thank you.
Yeah, so you are correcting my figures. You are saying that the Ivorian estimate is actually 2.5 million. 2.5 million. So that just buttresses my point that they increased by about 1 million and then you increased by 20,000 tons. Now, you are attributing almost every reason why this is happening to cocoa disease. Don't you think that the key difference is in the liberalization on the Ivorian side and the continuing state control of production and marketing on the Ghanaian side, resulting into inefficiency in input, cost and other factors, and the monopoly that the state is exercising over the marketing means that it is only the resources that the state is able to mobilize that gets injected into the cocoa industry, whereas the liberalized side, the liberalized program of the Ivorian side, is pushing a lot of people into investing in cocoa production, which is exponentially seen to this expansion that we are seeing in it. So are you willing to really reconsider this state control and monopoly of inputting into cocoa production and the marketing of cocoa produce and the monopoly in the export of cocoa products in cocoa beans in Ghana?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I think Honorable Ayaraga is asking all the right questions. And it has an underlying philosophical implication as to whether state control of private sector control is the best. This argument can go on forever. But I want to assure him that the system that we have today was actually started in 1947, not yesterday. And it has served us very well indeed. We are just going through a transit period. We were the dominant force in world cocoa production for more than a century and a half. I would want to remind him. It's only the last 20 years or so that Ivory Coast has taken over from us. So we shouldn't despair. At the peak of it in the beginning of the 1990s, Ghana and other African countries came under very heavy fire from the World Bank, from these Washington institutions to liberalize. The best we did was to liberalize the local internal marketing. And we left the core function to the state. And I think those who resisted then did a very good job, because in as much as we are looking at production and saying the system is better than this, there are a lot of problems with the Ivorian system, huge problems that are emerging. And given another 10 years or so, when things mature, we will see which system. But at least in our case, we have decades and decades of experience and have some of the best personnel, technical people managing our industry, from research through marketing and so on. And these are very dedicated people who, by world standards, and compare with any in the world. And I think that we should take comfort in that and not look at the temporal, short-term performance of production to change our system. Thank you.
A follow-up question on that one, sir. No, follow-up question, sir. No, please. A follow-up question, please.
Just go ahead.
The last time you appeared before us, I asked you a question about cotton production. Cotton production and what?
Chair, since he's moving into cotton, Chair, with your leave, since he's going into cotton, may I, as the nominee, would you say that the aspects of the state control, would you say that the aspect of state control in the cocoa sector has resulted in high quality of Ghana's cocoa as compared to Cote d'Ivoire? Because we were talking about experienced hands and way we ensure quality control and all that. I am saying that, the metaphor my colleague was trying to create in terms of the yield and all that, and your emphasis on quality, is it your case that as a result of the state control of aspects of the value chain is what has led to continuously Ghana's cocoa being of the highest quality?
Yeah, yes, indeed. Honorable Chairman, Ghana is reputed to have by far the best quality cocoa beans in the world. And in fact, the manufacturers of chocolate and other big processors abroad would take just a little bit of Ghana cocoa and mix it with Indonesian and other origins to bring it up to the level. This is why Ghana cocoa has historically had this premium on the terminal market of sometimes as high as 300 pounds per ton. And you are right, the Deputy Leader, to say that this has been possible because of the control, the central control that we have, and ensuring quality assurance and so on in the industry. Thank you.
Okay. I was going to do a follow-up on the same cocoa liberalization debate. It's a very important debate, Mr. Chairman. No, it's a follow-up. Chairman admitted follow-up. Now, if one country next door liberalizes and is able to increase income on those cash crops by, you mentioned, was it 1 billion or 18 billion? I mean 8 billion or 18 billion? Was it 18 billion is what comes to Ivory Coast through liberalization of the tree crop sector. And we get how much? 2 billion. 2.5 billion. Okay? That's in terms of income to the country, whether it's coming to government or private sector or it's being shared with international investors or whatever. Then production increases. One side is producing, 2.5 million metric tons, and the other side is producing 800,000 metric tons. 800,000 metric tons. I mean, how can you say, because you are ideologically opposed to liberalization,
this stark evidence of progress generated by liberalization is a problem. And how can the quality of cocoa production be tied to state control? It is a function of agronomic practices and supervision and the quality of seeds and fertilizer and etc., which the state could still supervise and control, even if it is being done by private sectors through your various regulatory institutions, Crop Research Institute, the Fertilizer Committee, and all those other bodies. Are you just opposed to liberalization ideologically, or you think liberalization cannot produce for Ghana the values and the income and the results that it is producing for Ivory Coast?
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. I wish we were in a different forum to debate this subject. I don't want to take us away from the essence of what we are doing here. It's a question of opinion, as he's expressing. So I think we will leave it there and then move on with our discussion.
A very important matter to me, fertilizer subsidy. The pricing of fertilizer subsidy, the amount of money we spend on importation of fertilizer, and ultimately what I think is a huge inefficiency in the pricing of fertilizer because of the fertilizer subsidy. Now, can you tell us, relative to the world market of fertilizer, okay, how much as a country do you, let's say, purchase fertilizer per ton from the people that you award the contract for the supply of fertilizer? And don't you think that we'll all be better off if you just liberalized, opened up, and allowed as many people as possible who have funds to import fertilizer and sell directly to farmers, and therefore everybody can get as much as they want to buy? And then rather we compensate farmers with higher prices of the produce. Don't you think that would be a more efficient arrangement? Look at the figures, how much you are spending on fertilizer imports and how much food we are producing after that investment.
Honorable Chairman, I don't think that Honorable Ayaga wants to pursue me for a debate. The fact of the matter is that if you talk about the amount of money government spends on fertilizer and seeds, the quantity of food produced, and you put a figure on it, it is a very lucrative business for the government to invest in agriculture. If you take maize and the others, in the first year, where we have the full figures for 2017 and 2018, government invested something like 600 million, for instance, in 2018, 600 million. No, let's take 2019, 851 million cities. Now, the amount of food produced in terms of the grains, the direct effect, we are talking about the farm gate income of 1.8 billion cedis to the participating farmers. There couldn't be any better business than that. Apart from the surpluses that come to the cities, much cheaper, lowering inflation, all the macroeconomic benefits, directly inside the pockets of farmers who would then spend the money on secondary, tertiary things to increase the economy. You can't put a figure on it. So for me, it is a very good investment, except that you have these thieves who want to cheat the state by taking it and crossing the border with it because they stand to make a lot of money for themselves. And as I've said before, the ministry has taken very strenuous measures to reduce the smuggling to the minimum by restricting, and I don't want to go back to the numbers and the figures, restricting the movement of fertilizer to specific districts which are known to be doing it, from the Volta region all the way to Upper West. Chereponi and all those, I don't want to mention the names of the districts here. So, well, I didn't want to go there. So, apart from that, reducing the unit weight from 50 kilograms to 25 kilograms to make it more difficult for them to pack and unpack and all that. And then using these garrisons that military garrisons that are now crossing the northern part of the country to stop the jihad and so on, collaborating with them to make sure that smuggling, they're patrolling the borders and all that. So we're taking great measures, and also labeling the 25 kilogram bags boldly. We're planting for food and jobs with a yellow diagonal band to identify it, and so on and so forth. So we are happy with the measures that we put in place to minimize smuggling of fertilizer. But when it comes to the policy itself of making sure that the poorest people in this country, who happens to be smallholder farmers, who cannot pay for the market price and have no clue that by using improved seed and fertilizer, they can treble or even quadruple their annual income, which is what we are seeing today, is much, I would recommend this to any government in Ghana or anywhere else with similar arrangement to carry on with that policy. Thank you.
Yes. Most grateful, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would like to raise the matter to do with self-sufficiency in rice production. I've seen that the latest numbers, official statistics, are indicating that we are doing 665,000 metric tons in production, which is just about 50% of our demand. I would like to find out from the honorable nominee what the strategy is moving forward for self-sufficiency in rice production, because we have the capacity. In my own constituency, Aveima Rice, for example, what is the plan for the future of Aveima Rice Prairie Volta Company Limited, as it was known, appears defunct at the moment. But all across this country, from the Volta region all the way to the northern regions, we have capacity to be self-sufficient in rice production. I want to find out from the honorable nominee what the strategy is moving forward, and do we have any timelines as to by what period Ghana can be self-sufficient in rice production?
I think, Honorable Chairman, I have already put my neck on line. I'm saying that with all the confidence I can gather, that by 2023-2024, Ghana will be self-sufficient in rice, or maybe earlier. And I'm saying this with a quantity of improved rice seed, agro seed, that we've been distributing to these farmers in my past 4 years as the Minister for Food and Agriculture. I have the statistics here to give, and I don't want to bore you, but let me give you a few of them. The quantity of seeds that we supplied of rice seeds, agro seed, for PFJ was 1,698 metric tons in 2017. By 2020, that figure last year, we distributed 8,500. That's from roughly 1,700. We have distributed 8,500. And these are high-yielding seeds that we have distributed not only to the traditional areas in the northern savannah, but also to the valleys of the forest region, which are endowed with a lot of water suitable for rice cultivation. That the preparedness of the farmers to actually accept this new rice strain. I mean, last year around this time, in March, I went around the country, came to Eastern region, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing in the valleys. They become like Galamsey sites. Young men and women pouring to these areas, growing rice because the farm is so profitable that the uptake, they just even couldn't wait for Ministry of Agriculture to bring them the seeds. They were using, some of them were using traditional local seeds to plant. And you could see the difference between the agro seed and that. So we know that this will continue. We will continue to provide them more and more of these seeds. And with that, the yield are much higher. So we know that by 2023, 2024, in terms of actual production of paddy rice, we would reach the mark. The biggest constraint of all that is to do with milling capacity. Honorable Chairman, milling capacity, we estimate Ghana has a milling capacity of only 400,000 metric tons. If you want to reach 1.2 million metric tons, and you have only capacity for 400,000 metric tons, then you are in trouble. But in a way, we've been relieved by the demand for Ghana paddy rice from Nigeria and others. They are coming here and mopping up. And until the private sector, because government hasn't got money to be installing mills, so until the private sector, which has also started investing in mills, can catch up with the demand for milling capacity in Ghana, at least we'll be held by our neighbors so the farmers do not waste their time producing and sitting there without any buyers. There are buyers from outside the country who will take them away. So the farmers will continue to produce so long as we give them the rice, seeds, and so on. So we are very confident, Honorable Member, that we will be able to do it. Aveime rice. Well, Aveime rice is very famous. We all know it. You mentioned this company, which Prairie and so on. They've been in dispute with us. I came to inherit that dispute. It still goes on unresolved, which is unfortunate because they came with very good intentions, and at the moment, all the areas that they prepared for planting have been taken over by private people, which is also very good, and most of them are young people. I've met a taxi driver in Accra who's farming rice near Aveime. A lot of young people, even teachers, doing it part-time and so on, which is very encouraging. So we are here to help. So any member of parliament who can organize in his area a group of young people, we are prepared to give them the seed and support them with the fertilizer and so on to make sure that they get some benefit from what we are doing. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my second question relates to concerns I have reading the Auditor General's report for 2018 and 2019, particularly with reference to the audit they have carried out on the planting for food and jobs. The audit report for 2018 at page 167, the Auditor General reveals that there is an outstanding debt on planting for food and jobs of 2,889,289. 2,889,289. And if I can read the paragraph 364, it says, under the planting for food and jobs, farmers are provided with farm inputs. The farmers are required to make upfront payment of 50% of the farm inputs before the farming season, and the remaining 50% loan payable after the farming season. During our review, we noted poor recovery of the loans from the farmers after the farming seasons. In 19 offices visited, we observed that out of the total of 5.5 million granted, only 2.2 million has been recovered thus far. This is 2018. In the 2019 report of the Auditor General, the matter comes up again at page 125, and this is at paragraph 252. Failure to recover debt from defaulters, 2,728,440 Ghana cedis. And it says indebtedness of tractor and equipment beneficiaries. That's also 3.1 million Ghana cedis. That's at page 130 of the report. At page 125 of the report, we are also told that failure to recover debt from defaulters of the Planting for Food and Jobs program, 2,728,440. So you're making all these investments, but the Auditor General is pointing to leakages. And I'm worried, will the PFJ be sustainable if these losses and these leakages with the Auditor General is reporting continues? Are you aware, are you privy to these audit findings, and what are you going to do to stop the hemorrhage?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm aware of these debts, these outstandings. But you know, we have to take it in context. We are talking about hundreds of millions of cedis worth of inputs, and these 2.8 million cedis and so on, even the banks do not recover to that level. It doesn't mean that it's not important to us. It is very, very important to us, and we are taking measures. And as and when we go, we are collecting. It's not a debt. It's not written off. It's still standing in the books. So we are aware of this. In fact, we have a dedicated auditor who goes around the country looking at these and reporting back to me directly as to how much of the debt in this district has been paid by who and all that. So I can assure the honorable member that it is not something that we are leaving unattended. I'm actively on top of the issue. The more, it's really a question of education. The farmers realize that before we gave these facilities, and I'm sure if the honorable member has his constituency, they will confirm to him that these facilities had never been provided by anybody. This is the first time. And they realize that they're endangering their chances if they carry on, because once you have a debt in a group once and twice, that's it, we cut you off. You and the whole group, you will never benefit from the subsidies again. And initially, when we came and we said this is a penalty, they thought we were joking. But we put that into practice, and that's making people pay, because if you look at the percentage, these figures that you've mentioned, 2.8, 2.7, 3.1, 2.7, and yet I'm talking about an increase from 414 million for seed and fertilizer to all the way to 954 million. So the percentage of it which goes unpaid is actually declining. If you look at the absolute figures, you may think it's, but definitely it's declining, and it's because of the efforts that we at the ministry are putting in to ensure that we retrieve. But obviously, any credit of that nature in a rural environment, you will never be able to do 100%. But we are trying, that's our target. And I can assure the honorable member that it's not money lost at all. We are pursuing them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My third part of questioning will focus on your handing over notes. I have a copy here at page 215. I am quite alarmed that of the 3,751 vehicular fleet that you have, only 50 are tractors. That's your own writing. I can read it if you want me to refresh your memory. Paragraph 14.2, page 215. Inventory of assets and properties of the government. The Ministry of Food and Agriculture's total vehicular fleet of 3,751, consisting of 701 vehicles, 3,000 motorbikes, and 50 tractors and equipment for its operations. This is 50 tractors and equipment, less than even a quarter of the 260 districts we have in Ghana. I would have thought that tractors and equipment will rather be more than the vehicles and motorbikes. I can understand that, especially the extension officers who need motorbikes. But only 50 tractors for the whole Ministry of Food and Agriculture? Is this figure accurate, and exactly what is going on?
Honorable Chairman, I'm surprised that the member of Parliament is expressing surprise, because when the farm mechanization centers were established under the Kufuor administration in 2006, and they built up, I think, 56 farm mechanization centers where smallholders could go and hire services to plow and all that. In the subsequent years, 8 years, almost all of them came to a standstill because of lack of maintenance, spare parts, mismanagement, and so on. So when we came on board, there was virtually no farm mechanization centers really working. And that's the reason that we have only 50. Or even 50, I'm surprised rather than in the reverse. I thought there would be no tractors. But we have restarted the program of farm mechanization centers with what we have received from Brazil so far, where we've given 52 local government authorities a core number of tractors and other things. We are going to add to it those who perform well. And then we've given another 100 and something to farmer groups that we've organized around the country. And then, of course, private sector people, commercial farmers, and so on, have also received them. The government of Akufo-Addo decided that to encourage mechanization, we are going to subsidize farm machinery, imported farm machinery, by 40%. So a tractor and a plow and others which should have cost over 230 cities were being sold to farmers. The big
Honorable Minister, let your record be clean. 230 cities?
230,000.
Very well.
Yes. You are going to be very interested if it was only 230. Okay. So, and with 145,000, you could have the whole set for the same amount. So we are re-establishing, and as I mentioned, the Brazilian facility, the last tranche is coming by the end of the first quarter. This quarter, the second quarter, we should start receiving them. And we intend to use it to establish more farm mechanization centers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
I hope that the honourable nominee will. This is my follow-up on the third question on handing over notes.
Follow-up from this answer.
Follow-up on handing over notes. I said that my
follow-up on the answer, not notes. Please ask the question.
The nominee is assuring us that he will address this alarming situation of only 50 tractors that the ministry can boast of at the moment in 260 districts. Can the nominee give us some timelines? You have said that you would work hard at it, but can we have some timelines? And some numbers, say by end of 2021, what will this increase to? Some specific numbers, if we can have that assurance.
Sorry, I don't have those figures with me, but I know that we are going to have a big infusion of farm machinery. $150 million from Exim Bank of India, and we are going to have this 33 or is it 34 million last tranche from Brazil. That's quite an infusion in 1 year to have. I'm sure it's unprecedented to have nearly $200 million worth of farm machinery coming into the country to do all kinds of things on farm, harvesting, and then off farm processing, and so on. And so I know that we definitely are going to have a significant input of farm machinery into Ghanaian agriculture. That one I'm absolutely sure. But in terms of when it's going to be and so on, I don't have the figures with me. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Now, okay. Giselle, you have one, and Zozo have one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senior nominee, does your ministry have a mechanism to monitor the use of chemicals, especially weedicides, fertilizers, and so on, and the long-term effects of these chemicals on the human body?
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Yes, we have a division, actually it should be an authority, and we are working towards it, called the Plant Protection, PPRSD, Plant Protection, whatever it is. And they are the ones who are in charge by law in monitoring chemicals, in issuing permits for all plant materials coming into the country or going out of the country, the fertilizers, their effectiveness, the seeds, and so on. So it's a whole department with highly specialized staff who are there. It's just like the Food and Drug Board and the others, Standard Board and so on. They are there specifically for plant and animal life. In that way, they are I would say the plant police men of Ghana. They are at all the borders of Ghana, checking anything, food or plant source going out of the country or coming in, or animals coming in or out, including dogs at the airport and all those things. They have quarantine facilities and all that. So we do monitor chemicals, but the impression hidden in the question is the worry that too much chemicals will be spoiling our soils and so on, which is a concern that has been expressed to me many times. But we shouldn't forget that Ghana has one of the least application of chemical fertilizers in the world. And that's one of our problems, that we are not applying enough chemicals to boost our production, our productivity. So when we came into office, the average per hectare of fertilizer application in Ghana was only 8 kilograms per hectare, compared to the world average of 130 kilograms per hectare, and China of nearly 300 kilograms per hectare. So even the West African ECOWAS in 2007, the heads of state adopted a resolution that our target for West Africa is to raise our application of fertilizer to 50 kilograms per hectare. Since we came in, we've managed to increase the per hectare application from 8 kilograms per hectare to last year 20 kilograms per hectare, which is still less than half of the ECOWAS heads of state standard. So we are very far away from polluting the soils and environment with fertilizers. And I can assure the honorable member that we are keeping an eye through the monitoring of PPRSD to ensure that we don't exceed the levels which will harm our environment and the food intake. Thank you.
Honorable,
I'm sorry, Chairman. I have another
we
question.
agreed on one each, didn't we? That's what we agreed with the leaders. Honorable, please.
Chairman, it's a follow-up question, please. I hope you have enough manpower in that department, though. My other question is, who controls the proliferation of hydroponic systems? Who controls the proliferation of hydroponic systems? Hydroponics. Hydroponics. I should take off my mask. Hydroponics. Yes. The proliferation of them. Yes.
Now I understand your question. Yes, I mean, hydroponics is one area of, I would say, water agriculture. And the closest that we are doing is what we call the greenhouse villages. And if you come to Bojiase, to our center there, that's your constituency. So you should visit Bojuase.
I said who controls?
Yes. So there's a whole area of hydroponics where we are producing vegetables based on just water and the chemicals that are mixed in there. So I would entreat the honorable member to visit Bojuase of.
I have visited. I'm asking who controls that whole industry.
Oh,
it's a light one, but
the Ministry of Food and Agriculture does control. Actually, that Bojuase site belongs to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. So it belongs to the ministry, and there are 3 of such, including Bojuase in Ghana, one in Dawinya and one in Akumadan in Ashanti region, which we have done together with the Israeli company, which is what it is.
Mr. Chairman, I will engage the nominee later.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My question has to do with power tilers that was promised in your 2016 manifesto. And having been the minister over the last 4 years, I'm sure you would have some ideas about the power tilers. In 2018 budget of the government, it was stated that the government intends to distribute 1,000 power tilers and 1,000 power tilers. Is it less? I mean, yes. Okay. Very well. Very well. Power tilers. And then in the 2020 budget, government indicated that it had imported the 1,000 power tillers. There is, however, no evidence to suggest that these power tillers have been distributed to the farmers. Can you tell the committee whether they have been distributed and who the beneficiaries are?
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Yes, indeed. We imported these power tillers from Brazil, and specifically power tillers because we wanted farm machinery technology which would be suitable to smallholder agriculture, not these huge tractors that are beyond their means and even for hiring. So yes, we brought the 1,000 power tillers in. We've distributed all of them except for a few. We invited Mr. Chairman, Honorable Chairman, to our site at Agricultural Engineering near Bema Camp. You can come there anytime and we'll show you whatever is left. But they've all been distributed. Where they've been distributed to, I'll have to get the details for you. But if you visit us, we'll make it available. Thank you.
Just a quick follow-up. Do you know the cost of how much it was, at what cost, the 1,000 power tillers?
Oh, these are very cheap. I think they're about 6,000 cedis a piece. They are not expensive at all.
Yes, leadership. You want to ask a question, yes?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Doc, congrats again. I've been worried about farmers' attitude toward farming. I don't know if you have some plan to set in place a framework to educate farmers for them to appreciate farming as a business other than the usual approach to farming.
I think, Honorable Chairman, through the implementation of planting for food and jobs, a large majority of farming community, especially the smallholders, are beginning to see a change in their attitude towards farming. Because now surpluses, every farmer, almost every farmer benefiting from planting for food and jobs, is producing a surplus. And a surplus not only for the household, their household, but a surplus which they keep some in stock, and some of it they actually sell to meet their daily household requirements. I remember very well, Honorable Chair, visiting the palace of one of the biggest traditional chiefs in this country, the Nairi. And he told me this parable, that in his whole life, the first time that new maize has come to meet old maize was in my time as a Minister for Food and Agriculture. It is a parable because what he meant was that normally once you harvest, you consume with your household, and there's a gap, you have to wait for maybe 2-3 months before the new harvest comes in. But now these days, while the harvest is coming in, you still have stock of the previous year. And he said it never happened before. So you can see that farmers now have surpluses not only to feed themselves and their families, but also to buy the necessities of life, a cloth for the wife, a shirt for the child, and so on and so forth. So that in itself, and they've never seen so much production for themselves ever. I mean, on average, you go to Sisala area where they used to harvest 4 bags of maize or 50 kilogram bags of maize with a traditional crop. Now some of them are doing 40 bags of maize in 1 acre. 40 bags with hybrid maize. So they are beside themselves that, hey, so technology can change our lives. So automatically, the man is looking at it as a business. He can build his house or renew his house, buy himself a motorbike, send his children to school with good, good uniforms and so on. So I think that planting for food and jobs is changing lives and lifestyles amongst the rural folks. Thank you.
Doug, I commend you highly. I've witnessed evidence of the change, especially with the advent of planting for food and jobs, but I'm quite concerned about non-traditional exports. What will be your plans in the next years ahead of us for specific to non-traditional exports?
The change in the armor of planting for food and jobs is the planting for export and rural development, for which an authority, Tree Crop Development Authority, has been created by this Parliament through the efforts of the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to diversify Ghana out of our monocrop economy, which has been hanging on our necks for over 140 years. And if this vision is transformed into implementation, that will be the leader in non-traditional exports. Right? It will become traditional in the sense that there are these 3 crops which will produce it and earning as much as cocoa is earning us today, each one of the 6. In addition to that, we have the greenhouses, villages which we just mentioned in Bodrasi and other places, which will be the nucleus of the vegetable industry in this country for export and for domestic tourist industry and hotels and so on and so forth. So these are all non-traditional exports, cashew and all the others, where we are making the greatest of effort to ensure that they become traditional in quotes, to join cocoa in giving this country the capacity, export earning capacity, to develop our health systems, our roads, infrastructure, and so on, and our schools and our educational system. Thank you.